The humans arrived early and everything changed in that moment. Commander So-min was the first person to spot them on the long-range sensors. She had been monitoring space for any sign of help for the past 6 hours. Her eyes were tired, and her ship, Dawn Light, was barely holding together, but she never stopped watching. 3 massive shapes appeared at the edge of the solar system, moving at speeds that should have been impossible. The sensor readings made no sense at first because nothing that big should be able to move that fast. But as they got closer, the true size of the human battleships became clear. Mother of Stars whispered. Tactical Officer Dong-Woo, who was working beside her, "Those ships are enormous." Each human battleship was nearly 3 kilometers long, which made them bigger than some space stations. Their hulls were dark gray, almost black, with strange symbols painted on their sides in bright red letters. The symbols looked like writing, but in a language that seemed angry and warlike. "This is Admiral Young-ho aboard the battleship Seoul Fury," came a calm voice over the communication system. "Alliance fleet, please clear the combat area. We will handle this situation." Admiral Hyun-woo stared at the main display screen where 3 dots were approaching the Vorthan fleet directly. The human ships were not trying to be sneaky or clever. They were just flying straight at over 150 enemy vessels like they were going to a peaceful meeting. "Admiral Young-ho," he said into his microphone, "be advised that the enemy fleet consists of over 150 vessels, including 12 dreadnoughts. We recommend a coordinated attack plan." There was a short pause before the human admiral replied, "Thank you for the information, Admiral Hyun-woo. We have this situation under control." The 3 human battleships continued their approach without changing course or speed. Captain Dae-hyun watched from his damaged ship Morning Star and felt a mixture of hope and terror. The human vessels looked powerful, but they were still outnumbered 50-1. The Vorthan fleet had also noticed the approaching ships. Admiral Koth's voice filled the communication channels, but he no longer sounded calm and confident. "Unknown. Vessels, identify yourselves immediately," he said. "This is a Vorthan military operation. Withdraw from this area or face complete destruction." The human response was swift and terrible. All 3 battleships opened fire at the same moment. The weapons that came from the human ships were unlike anything the Alliance had ever seen. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, they fired solid chunks of metal at incredible speeds. The metal slugs moved so fast they appeared as streaks of light across space. When the first salvo hit the Vorthan ships, the results were devastating. 6 enemy cruisers simply vanished in explosions of metal and fire. The ships did not just get damaged or disabled, they completely ceased to exist in less than 1 second. "What kind of weapons are those?" gasped Lieutenant Tae Yang from his position at the communication station. Engineer Min Soo checked his sensor readings twice before answering. "They are firing pieces of metal at nearly 20% the speed of light," he said. "The kinetic energy alone is beyond our understanding." He watched in amazement as another salvo from the battleship Busan Thunder cut a Vorthan dreadnought completely in half. The massive enemy ship that had seemed invincible just moments before became 2 pieces of burning wreckage. On the Seoul Fury, Admiral Young-ho stood calmly on his command bridge watching the tactical displays. His crew worked with quiet efficiency, each person knowing exactly what to do. The bridge was clean and organized, but there was something frightening about how ready everything was for war target priority to enemy command ships. He ordered, "Fire when ready." The Seoul Fury weapon systems responded immediately. Dozens of metal projectiles shot across space at impossible speeds. Each shot was perfectly aimed, and each shot destroyed its target. The human gunners were not missing anything. Lieutenant Commander Soo-jin was flying her damaged fighter near the Alliance fleet when the human ships opened fire. She had never seen anything like it. The Vorthan vessels that had seemed so powerful and dangerous were being destroyed as easily as paper targets. "How are they doing this?" she whispered to herself. Captain Ji-hoon was serving as the tactical coordinator on the Seoul Fury. He had been with the human fleet for 3 years and had seen many battles, but this one was special because they were protecting their alliance friends' broadside formation. He announced to the other human ships, "Target, the enemy center formation." The 3 human battleships moved into a line so that all their weapons could fire at the same target area. The space between the human fleet and the Vorthon ships filled with streaks of light as thousands of projectiles crossed the void. What happened next would be remembered in military academies across the galaxy for generations. 37 Vorthon ships ceased to exist in less than 3 seconds. The enemy vessels simply vanished in a series of explosions that lit up space like a second sun. Admiral Koth tried to rally his remaining ships, but panic was spreading through the Vorthon fleet. Many of their vessels were trying to retreat, while others were firing wildly in all directions. The perfect formation they had maintained for days was falling apart. "Stand and fight, you cowards," Koth screamed over the radio. "We are the Vorthon Empire. We do not run from inferior species," but his ships were already running. The human weapons were too accurate and too powerful. Every shot meant another dead ship, and the Vorthons had never faced an enemy like this. The rumors about human warfare were all true, and probably worse than anyone had imagined. The remaining Vorthon vessels broke formation completely and tried to escape in different directions, but the human ships were faster. The Incheon strike moved to cut off their escape route while the Busan Thunder picked off stragglers with shots that punched through armor like it was made of paper, Commander. So-min found herself holding onto her chair as she watched the destruction. She had wanted the humans to save them, but this was beyond salvation. This was complete domination. "They are not just winning," she whispered to her tactical officer. "They are enjoying it." Indeed, the human tactic seemed almost playful. Instead of simply destroying every enemy ship at once, they were herding the Vorthons like space cowboys rounding up cattle. They would force groups of enemy ships together and then destroy them all with single devastating volleys. The Seoul Fury demonstrated something humans called a broadside attack. Every weapon on one side of the massive ship fired at the same time. The result was a wall of destruction that erased everything in its path. A dozen Vorthon ships disappeared in the blink of an eye. On the mining colony below, the people in the shelters could see the flashes of light in the sky through small windows. The battle that had been going on for days was suddenly ending. But they did not yet know who was winning. The explosions were too bright and too frequent to understand what was happening. Governor Lee was getting reports from his observers, but the information was confusing. It seemed like the entire Vorthon fleet was being destroyed, but that was impossible. Nothing could defeat so many ships so quickly. "Sir, our observers report that unknown ships are systematically destroying the enemy fleet." One of his aides said, "The attack appears to be coordinated and extremely effective." Within 15 minutes, the once mighty Vorthon Third Fleet was reduced to burning wreckage floating in space. The only ships that remained intact were a few vessels that had surrendered by shutting down all their weapons, and Engine's Admiral Koth flagship was still alive, but only because the humans wanted it that way. The massive Vorthon dreadnought had lost all its weapons and most of its engines. It was drifting helplessly while small human fighters circled it. "Like sharks, Admiral Koth, this is Admiral Young-ho. Do you surrender?" The alien admiral response was barely audible over the radio static. We surrender." The battle was over. The human battleships had arrived late, but they had ended the conflict in exactly 17 minutes. The Alliance fleet that had been fighting desperately for 3 days was saved, and the mining colony was safe. But everyone who watched the battle knew that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. The humans had shown what they were really capable of when their friends were threatened. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Lieutenant Tae Yang finally understood why everyone had been so afraid of human battleships arriving for combat. They were not just weapons. They were instruments of absolute destruction operated by people who understood war in ways that peaceful species could never comprehend. The age of human military power had begun. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes, and in that time, everyone in the galaxy learned what human warfare really meant. Captain Dae-hyun watched from his damaged ship Morning Star as the human battleships moved through the Vorthan fleet like tigers hunting sheep. The enemy vessels that had seemed so powerful and frightening were being destroyed so easily it looked like a training exercise. The human ships did not just fire their weapons and hope to hit something. Every shot was perfectly aimed, and every shot destroyed its target. The gunners on those battleships had practiced this kind of fighting for years, and it showed in their deadly accuracy. Sir, I am reading massive energy spikes from the human vessels reported. Sensor Officer Jae-sung from his station. They are charging some kind of secondary weapon system. On the main viewing screen, the Soul Fury was rotating slowly until its side faced the largest group of remaining Vorthan ships. Along the battleship hull, dozens of hatches opened to reveal weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. The weapons looked different from the metal projectile guns they had been using. All Vorthan vessels. "This is your only warning," came Admiral Young-ho's voice over the communication. "System surrender immediately or face complete destruction." Admiral Koth's response was filled with rage and desperation. "We are the Vorthan Empire," he screamed. "We do not surrender to inferior species. You may have destroyed some of our ships, but we will fight to the death." The human admiral reply was cold and final. "Then you die." What happened next would be studied and discussed in military schools across the galaxy for the next 100 years. The Soul Fury fired what humans called a broadside. Every weapon on one side of the ship discharged at the same moment. The space between the human battleship and the Vorthan fleet filled with thousands of streaks of light as metal projectiles crossed the void at incredible speeds. But this time, there was something else mixed in with the solid shots. Beams of pure energy that cut through space like swords made of light. 37 Vorthan ships ceased to exist in less than 3 seconds. The enemy vessels simply vanished as the combination of kinetic projectiles and energy weapons tore them apart at the molecular level. There was no time for explosions or escape pods. The ships were there one moment and gone, the next, Commander. So Min found herself gripping her chair as she watched. The slaughter. This was not a battle anymore. This was an execution. The humans were demonstrating their power in a way that would never be forgotten. They are not just superior, she whispered to her tactical officer. They are overwhelming. The remaining Vorthan ships tried to retreat, but the human battleships were faster and more maneuverable than anything their size should be. The Incheon strike moved to block the escape route, while the Busan Thunder picked off fleeing vessels with precise shots, Lieutenant. Commander Soo-jin was flying her fighter near the battle area, trying to document what was happening for the Alliance military records. What she saw defied everything she knew about space combat. The human ships were not just destroying their enemies, they were hunting them. The way they moved and fired showed a deep understanding of. Day 2 of the battle was much worse than the first. The Alliance fleet had lost 20 ships during the night, and the survivors were running low on power and ammunition. The Vorthan ships had moved closer to the mining colony and were now close, enough to target buildings on the surface. Lieutenant Commander Soo-jin led what was left of the fighter squadrons in a desperate attack against a Vorthan dreadnought. Her small ship danced through space, avoiding enemy fire while trying to find weak spots in the massive enemy vessel. The dreadnought was so big it had its own defensive weapons that shot at anything that came near Blue Squadron. "Target the communication arrays," she ordered through her helmet radio. "If we can blind them, maybe, the big ships can get closer." Her 8 remaining pilots responded with fierce determination, even though they all knew this was probably a suicide mission. Their light weapons could barely scratch the enemy armor, but they had to try the people in. The colony below were depending on them. One by one, Sujin watched her pilots get destroyed by the dreadnought defensive guns. Lieutenant Kiwoo's ship exploded when a missile hit his engine. Pilot Heejin fighter was cut in half by an energy beam. That was meant for bigger targets. Each death made her heart break a little more. "Sujin, get out of there!" came Admiral Hyun-woo's voice over the radio. "That is an order." She pulled her fighter into a steep climb away from the enemy, dreadnought dodging. 3 missiles that exploded just meters behind her ship. The blast wave knocked her fighter around like a toy, but she managed to keep control. When she got back to the main fleet, she counted her remaining pilots. Out of 8 fighters, only 2 had survived on the Alliance flagship. The mood was darker than space itself. The tactical display showed Vorthan ships surrounding the colony from all directions. They had stopped firing at the planet, but only because they were getting ready for a final attack that would destroy everything. "Sir, we are getting reports from our deep space sensors," announced Sensor Officer Jae Sung. His voice was excited but also scared. 3 ships are coming toward us at maximum speed. They are moving faster than anything we have ever recorded. Admiral Hyun-woo felt a chill run through his body. "Can you identify them?" "The energy signatures match human battleships," Sir Jae-sung said. "But they are still 30 hours away. 30 hours. Admiral Hyun-woo looked at the tactical display again. At their current rate of loss, the Alliance fleet would be completely destroyed in less than 15 hours. There would be nothing left to save when the humans arrived. Through the communication system, Admiral Koth's voice returned. "This is your final warning, Alliance fleet," he said. His voice sounded happy and confident. "Surrender now, or watch your precious colony burn. We will start by destroying the schools and hospitals." Captain Dae-hyun was still fighting in his damaged ship Morning Star. The vessel had holes in its hull and half the crew was injured, but they kept fighting. Engineer Min-soo was working with broken equipment, trying to keep the engines running. "Sir, the main power coupling is failing," Min-soo reported. "We have maybe 4 hours of power left, then we fight for 4 hours." Captain Dae-hyun replied. On the planet's surface, the evacuation was going badly. There were too many people and not enough safe places to hide. The underground shelters were full, and families were being separated as they tried to find safety. Some children were lost in the confusion, and their parents were desperately searching for them. Governor Lee was trying to coordinate the evacuation from the main command bunker, but the situation was hopeless. The transport ships that tried to leave were being destroyed by Vorthan fighters. The colony was trapped. "Sir, we have incoming missiles from the enemy fleet," announced Defense Coordinator Yoon-ah. "They are targeting the power plant. If the power plant was destroyed, the colony would lose life support, air recycling, and heating systems. Everyone would die slowly in the cold darkness of space." The defensive batteries on the planet fired at the incoming missiles. But there were too many. Commander So-min was coordinating the defense of the remaining Alliance ships. Her own vessel, Dawn Light, had taken severe damage and was barely able to move, but her crew kept fighting. The ship weapons were overheating from constant use, and the shields were failing. "We need to buy more time," she said to her tactical officer. Halma-am replied. "Lieutenant Dong-woo, our weapons are almost useless against their armor, then we ram them." So Min said, "If we are going to die, let us take some of them with us." The Dawn Light turned toward a group of Vorthan cruisers and accelerated to ramming speed. The enemy ships tried to destroy it before it could reach them, but the Alliance vessel managed to crash into one of the cruisers. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball. Captain Park had survived the destruction of his ship, Silver Hope, and was now serving on the Alliance cruiser Bright Dawn as a tactical advisor. He watched the battle displays and calculated their chances of survival. "Captain Lee," he said to the ship commander, "we have 12 ships left. The enemy has over 100. "I can count," Captain Lee replied, "but we still have people to protect." The Vorthan fleet was now close enough to see the details of the colony. Cities. The enemy ships' weapons were all pointing at the populated areas ready to start the final destruction. Admiral Koth was probably enjoying the fear and desperation he was causing. "Sir, we are receiving a tight beam transmission from one of the approaching human ships," Jae-jung announced. "This is strange. The signal is very weak, but very focused." "Put it through," Admiral Hyun-woo ordered. The voice that came through was barely a whisper. "This is Captain Ji-hoon aboard the human vessel, Seoul. Fury. We are pushing our engines beyond safe limits to reach you sooner. New arrival time, 26 hours. Hold your positions at all costs." 26 hours, whispered Commander So-min from her damaged ship. "How can we hold for 26 hours? The Alliance ships were spread out in a ragged line between the Vorthon fleet and the colony. Each vessel was damaged and running low on power. Their crews were exhausted from fighting for 2 days straight. Some ships had lost more than half their people. Lieutenant Tae Yang was now serving as acting communications officer after the original officer was injured in the last attack. He was monitoring all the radio channels, trying to coordinate what was left of their defense, Sir the Morning Star. "Reports they have lost main engines," he announced. "Captain Dae-hyun says they will use maneuvering thrusters to stay in position." "The Stellar Dawn is venting atmosphere from Deck 7, added another report. "They have sealed the breach but lost 8 crew members." Every few minutes brought news of more damage and more casualties. The Alliance fleet was falling apart piece by piece, but they refused to retreat. The mining colony behind them held 10 million innocent people, including many children. His damaged ship, Captain Dae-hyun, gathered his surviving crew in the main corridor. Many of them were injured, and all of them were scared, but they stood ready to keep fighting. "We all know the situation," he said. "The enemy wants us to give up so they can murder the people we swore to protect. We will not let that happen." Engineer Min-soo raised his hand. "Sir," he said, "if we overload the reactor, we could create an explosion big enough to damage several enemy ships." Captain Dae-hyun nodded. "That might be our final option. Let us see what the next few hours bring." The human ships were still 26 hours away, but their reputation was spreading through both fleets. The Alliance crews felt hope mixed with terror, while the Vorthon ships were beginning to show signs of nervousness. Admiral Koth sent another message to the Alliance fleet. "Your human friends are known for their violence," he said, "but we have studied their tactics. We know how to fight them. You are still going to die, but for the first time." His voice did not sound completely confident. The Vorthon Empire had heard the stories about human battleships just like everyone else. Some of those stories were probably true, and that was a frightening thought. Lieutenant Commander Soo-jin was flying patrol missions around the fleet perimeter in one of the last 2 fighters. Her ship was damaged and low on fuel, but she kept going. The enemy had stopped trying to break through the Alliance lines and was just waiting. Waiting for what? She wondered. Then she realized they were waiting for the humans to arrive. The Vorthans wanted to destroy the Alliance fleet and the colony before the human battleships could intervene. It was going to be a race against time. The Vorthon attack started when the colony clock showed morning time. Their ships moved forward like a dark wave covering the stars. Each enemy vessel was painted black with red symbols that looked like angry faces. The Vorthans wanted everyone to know they were coming to destroy things. Captain Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of his ship Morning Star and watched the enemy fleet approach. His crew was at their stations trying to look brave, but he could see fear in their eyes. The ship shook as the first enemy weapons hit their protective shields. The Alliance fleet had spread out in a big circle around the mining colony. Each ship was trying to protect the people below from different directions. But there were too many enemy ships coming. From all sides, it was like trying to stop rain with an umbrella that had holes in it. "Shields at 60%, shouted Engineer Min-soo from his control station. The numbers on his screen were dropping fast as more enemy fire hit their ships. "Sir, the Golden Dawn is taking heavy damage," reported Communications Officer Ye Jin. She was listening to radio messages from other Alliance ships. The news was getting worse every minute. "They are requesting help." Captain Dae-hyun wanted to help the other ships, but his own vessel was in trouble. 3 Vorthan destroyers had surrounded the Morning Star and were firing their plasma cannons. The bright green energy beams made the space around them look like a deadly light show on the main viewing screen. Captain Dae-hyun could see the Golden Dawn fighting for its life. The ship was spinning and smoking as enemy fire tore holes in its metal hull. Captain Soo-jung was trying to escape, but there were too many enemies around her. The communication system crackled with the voice of Admiral Koth, the Vorthan leader. "This is Admiral Koth of the Vorthan Third Fleet," he said. His voice sounded happy and cruel. "Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Continue fighting and we will destroy your colony." Ship by ship, building by building, Captain Dae-hyun felt anger burning in his chest. The Vorthans were not just trying to win a battle. They wanted to hurt innocent people and destroy everything beautiful in the galaxy. That was why the Alliance had to stop them, even if it meant dying. Around the battle area, space was filled with explosions and bright flashes of light. Alliance ships were firing their energy weapons at the enemy, but the Vorthon shields were very strong. The enemy ships just kept coming like metal sharks hunting for blood. Lieutenant Commander Min Ho was leading the fighter squadrons in small, fast ships. His pilots were brave young people from many different planets. They flew between the big ships trying to hit weak spots with their small weapons. "Blue Squadron, target the engine areas," Min Ho said through his helmet radio. "We need to slow down those big ships." His 12 fighters dove toward a massive Vorthan dreadnought. The enemy ship was as big as a city and covered with weapons that shot in all directions. The small Alliance fighters looked like insects attacking a giant beast one. By one, Min Ho watched his pilots get shot down by the enemy defensive guns. Their small ships exploded in brief flashes of light. Each explosion meant another young person had died trying to protect the colony. "Min Ho, get out of there," came Admiral Hyun-woo's voice over the radio. "That is an order." Min Ho pulled his fighter up and away from the enemy ship, dodging a missile that exploded just behind him. When he got back to the fleet, he counted his remaining pilots. Only 4 out of 12 had survived on the Alliance flagship Stellar Pride. The mood was very dark. Admiral Hyun-woo stared at the tactical display screen. That showed the battle. The red dots representing Vorthan ships were everywhere, while the blue dots of Alliance ships kept disappearing. "Sir, we are getting reports from our long-range sensors," announced Sensor Officer Jae-sung. 3 ships are coming toward us very fast. They are moving faster than anything we have ever seen before. Admiral Hyun-woo felt hope and fear at the same time. "Can you tell what they are?" "The energy patterns match human battleships," Sir Jae-sung said, "but they are still 36 hours away, 36 hours. Admiral Hyun-woo looked at the battle display again. At the rate they were losing ships, the Alliance fleet would be completely destroyed in less than 20 hours. There would be nothing left for the humans to save. The Silver Hope was one of the Alliance ships that got surrounded by 3 Vorthon destroyers. Captain Park was trying to keep his crew alive, but the enemy ships were too strong. The Silver Hope shields failed and the hull started breaking apart. "Abandon." Ship Captain Park ordered over the ship intercom. "All crew to the escape pods." Small rescue pods shot out from the Silver Hope just before the ship exploded. The Vorthan destroyers started shooting at the escape pods, trying to kill the survivors. Some pods made it to other Alliance ships, but many did not. Engineer Sung-min was working in the engine room of the Morning Star, trying to keep the power systems running. The ship was shaking so hard that tools were falling off the walls. Every time enemy weapons hit their shields, the lights flickered. "We are losing power to the front shields," he reported to Captain Dae-hyun. "If we take much more damage, the engines will shut down." Captain Dae-hyun made a hard decision. "All power to rear engines," he ordered. "We are going to ram that destroyer." The Morning Star turned toward the nearest Vorthon ship and accelerated. The enemy vessel tried to get out of the way, but Alliance ship hit it in the side. Both ships were badly damaged, but the Vorthon Destroyer was knocked out of the fight. Communications officer Ye Jin was trying to coordinate with other Alliance ships, but many of them had stopped responding. The radio channels were full of emergency calls and requests for help that could not be answered. "Captain, this is the Dawn Rider," Ye Jin reported. "They have lost their main engines and are drifting toward the enemy fleet. Send them our shuttle," Captain Dae Hyun said. "Maybe we can get some of their crew off." But before they could help the Dawn Rider, 3 Vorthan cruisers surrounded it and destroyed it with concentrated fire. Another Alliance ship and its crew were gone. On the mining colony below, the people in the underground shelters could hear explosions in space. The sounds came through the planet atmosphere as distant rumbles like thunder. Children were crying and parents were trying to calm them down. Governor Lee was in the main command bunker trying to organize the evacuation, but there were not enough transport ships to carry everyone away. The Vorthan fleet was blocking the escape routes anyway. "Sir, we have a transmission from Earth Fleet Command," Ye Jin announced. "Put it through," Captain Dae Hyun ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was calm and steady. "This is Admiral Young Ho of the Earth Defense Force. We have received your distress call. Human battleships Soul Fury, Busan Thunder, and Incheon Strike are coming to help. Estimated arrival time, 47 hours. Hold your positions." When the crew heard this, some of them looked hopeful, but others looked scared. Everyone knew about human battleships, but no one knew exactly what they could do. The stories were frightening even when the humans were on your side. 47 hours, whispered Engineer Min Soo. "Can we last that long?" Outside the Morning Star, another Alliance ship called the Bright Star was breaking apart under enemy fire. Its crew was evacuating, but there were not enough escape pods for everyone. Captain Dae Hyun watched helplessly as brave people died fighting an enemy that was too strong. The battle had been going on for 6 hours, and the Alliance had lost 15 ships. The Vorthan fleet had only lost 3 vessels, and those were just damaged, not destroyed. The enemy was playing with them like cats playing with mice. Admiral Koth's voice came over the communications again. "Alliance fleet, you are dying for nothing. Your human friends cannot save you. Surrender now, and some of you might live to see tomorrow." "But Admiral," Hyun-woo answered with determination, "we will not surrender to murderers and tyrants. The Galactic Alliance stands for peace and freedom. We will fight until our last breath." The Vorthan Admiral laughed. "Then you will die. Very soon," he said. Admiral Hyun-woo stood on the command deck of the alien ship called Stellar Pride. The ship was huge and white, with blue lights everywhere. He looked out at space and saw many black enemy ships coming toward them. The enemy ships were from the Vorthan Empire, and they wanted to take over the peaceful planets. The mining colony below them had 10 million people living there. Most of them were families with children who had come to dig for special metals in the rocks. The colony had schools and hospitals, and parks just like any normal place. People were scared because the Vorthan ships looked mean and dangerous. Commander So-min walked up to Admiral Hyun-woo. She had blue skin like most of her people, and her eyes were glowing with worry. She carried a data pad with bad news on it. The information showed that more enemy ships were coming, every hour. "Sir, we are getting reports from our scout ships," she said. Her voice was shaking a little. "The Vorthan fleet has over 200 ships. We only have 60 ships to fight with." Admiral Hyun-woo felt his heart sink. The Galactic Alliance had always been about peace. They built ships for exploring new worlds and trading with other planets. Their weapons were small and meant only for protection. The Vorthan Empire was different. They loved war, and their ships were made for destroying things. The Alliance fleet was spread out around the mining colony trying to protect it. Each ship had brave people inside, but they all knew they were in big trouble. The Vorthan ships were bigger and had better weapons. It was like trying to fight tigers with sticks. "Have we heard anything from the human delegation?" Admiral Hyun-woo asked Commander. So-min looked at her data pad. "Yes, sir." Captain Ji-hoon sent a message. 30 minutes ago, He said their battleships are still 3 days away. When she said this, everyone on the command deck became very quiet. Some of the younger officers did not understand why this was important, but the older ones knew about human battleships. Everyone in the galaxy had heard stories about what happened when humans went to war. The humans had joined the Galactic Alliance only 5 years ago. Before that, most aliens thought humans were just another peaceful species. They seemed nice and friendly and always talked about working together. But then, something happened that changed everything. During the first big meeting between all the species, a Vorthan ambassador got angry. He stood up and shouted that the Vorthans would destroy Earth and kill all the humans. The human ambassador just smiled and said they would discuss it later. That night, 3 human ships appeared in Vorthan space and destroyed their biggest military base in 10 minutes. The Vorthans never threatened. Humans again, tell all ships to prepare for defense positions. Admiral Han Wu ordered. We need to hold out until the humans arrive. Lieutenant Tai Yang was the youngest officer on the ship. He had only been in space for 2 years and had never seen a real battle. He looked confused and scared. So why are we so worried, he asked. The humans seem peaceful enough. Their ambassadors are always talking about cooperation and friendship. The older officers looked at each other with serious faces. They knew things that young Tai Yang had never learned. Commander So Min put her hand on his shoulder in a gentle way. You have never seen a human battleship in action, have you? She asked. No, ma'am, he replied. Pray, you never have to, she whispered, but everyone heard her. The communication system started beeping with an incoming message. It was from the Vorthan fleet. The voice that came through was deep and mean-sounding. This is Admiral Koth of the Vorthan Third Fleet. He said, surrender your ships and your colony to us now. If you give up, we will only take half of your people as slaves. If you fight us, we will kill everyone. Admiral Hyun Woo felt anger burning in his chest. The Vorthans were known for being cruel to prisoners. They would work people to death in their mines and factories. But he also knew his small fleet could not win against so many enemy ships. We will defend this colony, he said into the microphone. Our people are under the protection of the Galactic Alliance. Admiral Koth laughed. It was not a nice sound. Your alliance cannot help you now. We know your human friends are far away. By the time they get here, you will all be dead or captured. The communication ended, and the Vorthan ship started moving closer. Their weapons were charging up and ready to fire. The Alliance ships spread out more, trying to make themselves harder targets, but everyone knew it would not help much in the colony below. People were running to underground shelters. The planetary governor had ordered all children to be moved to the deepest safe places first. Parents were crying as they said goodbye to their kids, not knowing if they would see them again. Admiral Hyun Woo watched the tactical display as red dots representing enemy ships moved. Across the screen, there were so many of them. Some were small and fast like wolves. Others were huge like space monsters with enough firepower to destroy a whole city commander. So Min was talking to other ship captains on the radio trying to organize their defense. Every Alliance ship captain was brave, but they all knew this might be their last battle. The ship called Morning Star was commanded by Captain Dae Hyun. He had fought pirates before, but never anything like this. His crew was young and scared, but they trusted him to keep them alive. The Golden Dawn had an all-female crew led by Captain Su Jung. They were famous for being the best explorers in the Alliance, but now they would have to be warriors. Lieutenant Commander Min Ho was in charge of the fighter squadrons. His small, fast ships were like mosquitoes compared to the Vorthan warships, but mosquitoes could still bite. As the hours passed, the tension grew thicker. Everyone was waiting for the battle to start. Some crew members were praying to their gods. Others were writing messages to their families back home. A few were just staring out at space, thinking about home. The human message had said 3 days, but that felt like forever. The Vorthan ships were getting into attack formation. Their weapons were glowing red and orange like angry eyes in the darkness. On the mining colony, the evacuation was not going well. There were too many people and not enough shelters. Some families were hiding in caves. Others were getting on transport ships to try to escape. But the Vorthon ships would probably destroy any ship that tried to leave. Admiral Hyun-woo made his decision. He turned to his communication officer, "Send a message to all Alliance ships." He said, "Tell them we fight. With honor, we protect the innocent. We hold the line until help arrives." The message went out to all 60 Alliance ships. Across the fleet, captains and crews prepared for battle. They checked their weapons and shields. They said prayers and made promises to each other. They knew they were probably going to die, but they would not let the colony fall without a fight. Lieutenant Tae-yang was still confused about why everyone was so afraid of human battleships, but also so hopeful. He decided to ask his friend Jae-sung, who had been in the Alliance longer. "What makes human ships so special?" he asked. Jae-sung looked out at space where the enemy ships waited. "Humans have been fighting wars against each other for thousands of years." He said they know how to kill things in ways we never imagined. When they build a warship, it is not just a ship. It is a weapon designed by people who understand war better than anyone else in the galaxy, but they seem so peaceful. Tae-yang said, "That is what makes them." Dangerous Jae-sung replied, "They choose to be peaceful. When they choose to be violent, the galaxy shakes." 2 hours after the battle ended, Admiral Hyun-woo found himself aboard the human battleship Seoul's Fury. The corridors were clean and efficient, but there was something unsettling about the ship's design. Everything seemed built for war. From the reinforced bulkheads to the weapon storage compartments that lined every hallway. Admiral Young-ho met him in the ship's briefing room. The human officer was younger than Hyun-woo had expected, with calm eyes that seemed to hold depths of experience. "Thank you for coming, Admiral," Young-ho said, gesturing to a chair. "I wanted to discuss what happens next." "The Alliance is grateful for your intervention," Hyun-woo replied carefully. "Your ships are impressive." Young-ho nodded. "They serve their purpose. I understand you have questions about our capabilities. Many questions. Your weapons, your speed, your tactics. They're all far beyond what we expected from a species that joined the Alliance only 5 years ago." The human admiral was quiet for a moment, looking out through the briefing room's viewport at the debris field that had once been a mighty fleet. "Admiral Hyun-woo, may I ask how many wars your species has fought?" "Wars? The Galactic Alliance has always been peaceful. We've had border disputes, trade conflicts, but nothing like this. My species has been at war with itself for thousands of years. We've fought with sticks and stones, with swords and shields, with gunpowder and steel, with nuclear weapons and orbital bombardments. We've perfected the art of killing each other in every way imaginable." Young-ho turned back to face him. "When we joined the Alliance, we hoped we were done with war. We built exploration ships, research vessels, colony transports, but we never forgot how to build warships. We never forgot how to fight. And now the galaxy knows that humans are peaceful by choice, not by nature. The Vorthon Empire declared war on the Alliance thinking they faced merchants and scientists. They were wrong." Admiral Hyun-woo thought about the 17-minute battle, about the precision and ruthlessness of the human attack. "What message should I send to the other Alliance members?" Young-ho smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "Tell them that humanity stands with the Alliance. Tell them that we will defend our friends and our values with everything we have. And tell them—" He paused, looking back at the debris field. "Tell them that for the love of all that's sacred, our enemies should pray they never have to face human battleships in combat, because once we arrive, the war is already over." As Hyun-woo prepared to leave the human ship, He couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had just changed forever. The humans had shown their true nature, and it was both terrifying and reassuring. In the days that followed, word of the battle spread throughout known space. The Vorthon Empire's surrender came within a week, along with reparations for the attacked colony. Other aggressive species reconsidered their expansion plans, and in the peaceful worlds of the Galactic Alliance, children would grow up hearing stories of the day when 3 human battleships appeared like avenging angels and reminded the galaxy why humanity's friends slept safely at night. The humans had kept their promise of peace and cooperation, but they had also made it clear that some promises are backed by the most terrible weapons in the galaxy, operated by a species that had spent millennia learning how to use them. For better or worse, the age of humanity had begun.